Hey guys, how are we doing today? Suppose we better do customary audio check. We sounding alright? There might be a little bit of background noise from my laptop. I'm quite close to it. I'm using it to stream. Then I've got a second monitor that I've got set up here. I zoom out. This is what we're going to be tracing today. This is a second print. First one's not quite finished. It'll be finished this weekend and sent out to you guys next week. But I've got to get started on the new one. I've got probably as good an image as I can get. So, if I do a little bit of explanation as to what I'm doing. So, the way that I trace my images, so you have this master image, and all I'm looking to trace is the key block, the black areas. Everything you see in black is what I'm going to trace. That's what I'll use to inform, use to make all my colour separations from. So I have this master image here, and then I have a flat white background layer, and I have this blank layer. So if I'm to zoom in and start drawing, you can see it's coming up in red. And the reason why I would want this in red is because it's a good contrasting colour that sits over the top of that black. And I have it on about 40% opacity, so it's slightly transparent. And the reason why we have it on separate layers is so that I can isolate this key block layer from the rest, and also I can uncheck the master layer and check that my lines are all nice and clean. And I can go back in and I can touch stuff up with an eraser, and I can work through it that way. Because you're never going to get the full taste of the lines all in the first pass. My brush is probably slightly too large. It's a 5. This might not be hugely exciting for everyone, but it is a job that is necessary, and it's something that people don't necessarily know goes on in the world of producing Japanese woodblock prints. Traditionally, this would have you would have had the main designer, in this case Koryusai, who did the original image, and this would have been then passed over once he'd done his first sketch, and would have been passed over to maybe one of his trainees, one of his students or something, and they would have done a tracing onto the hanshita, onto the gampi paper directly, and cleaned up the lines and stuff, and produced the final image that would be stuck down to the block. I myself am most definitely not an Edo era Japanese woodblock designer, and have no skill with a brush. Also, pasting down a hanshita, that thin gumpy tissue, without the backing that we use, the transfer, without the laminated backing that we use, is really tough. It's the tissue, I say gampi tissue, the paper itself can crinkle and warp very easily. So this is probably the most modern that you're ever going to see me get with creating a woodblock print. But I don't mind, it's quite relaxing. Yeah, I agree, George. And I feel like this is going to be really interesting. And starting with this print, I know the previous streams was me carving and it was a bit patchy here and there. It was sort of a bit all over the place. This one is something that I can show the entire process the whole way through. This is going to take me a couple of weeks, a good few weeks at least, because I'm working on other things at the same time. So I'm not going to be able to get this done in just a few days. It's going to be a little while, so we can go through the whole process and maybe mix in some other more theory and history based things as I'm on the computer, as I'm sat here with my laptop in front of me working on it. I can maybe pull up other things, show some examples. Jed actually sent me, Jed Henry, my collaborator, sent me a link the other day to a file. The British Museum has uploaded a full collection of Hokusai hansters that were never pasted down for whatever reason. So that would be really interesting to look at with you guys in between what we're doing here. Maybe I'll pull a few images up and we can do a bit of a slideshow and a bit of a talk on these images and what they are. From my point of view, it's really interesting because it's potentially something that I can maybe take advantage of. I can maybe look to actually produce these prints that were never created for whatever reason. Maybe the publisher didn't have the money, or it was deemed not quite the right image. No, I'm using a small Wacom tablet, drawing tablet, to do this. I wish I did have a touchscreen. So I have my laptop set up to the right hand side of me that's managing the chat and the stream, and then I have a computer monitor that I've expanded my screen, and I'm using that. I hope you can't hear too much background noise from the fans on the laptop. Now that I'm clearing through some of this work and fill in the bank account back up a little bit, I can invest a bit more into a capture card to try and minimise the amount of usage, the CPU usage that my laptop's currently getting. So here, these little thin lines, I'm just trying to hit the main shape at the moment. I'm not gonna try and completely depict the lines just as they are. Once I finish this section, you'll see I'm going to go back in with an eraser, and I'm going to pick out parts and shape the lines up and stuff a bit, because you can see up in the let me do this so that we can see my cursor. Capture cursor, done. Right, so can you guys see? Yeah, you can. Cool. So you can see up in these areas where it's quite dark, in and around these little sections here. This is areas where pigment has built up in the printing, and these little feather areas were probably a little bit larger than they are now, and they've just sort of clogged up and cloyed up with pigment. And if there's, see if I can find another area. Now you see, especially up in here, these dark areas, they're very good indicators that spots of pigment were caught up in the key lines, especially up in here where it's quite messy and quite wild all over the place. It's very easy to build up here again, up in the corners of the thing. So my job is, I'm trying to capture the lines. I'm trying to really get an essence of what Kurosawa's lines were, but at the same time I've got to clean them up a little bit. I've got to make good some of these tiny small errors that were made in the printing. This print was probably fairly cheap and done very fast, so they're bound to be very small little errors, and there could have even been very small errors in the carving itself. So it's sort of the decision that I've got to make as to what stays and what goes, because this is a reproduction at the end of the day. Do I try and reproduce the image as close to what I thought it would have looked like when it was made, or do I reproduce the carver's lines as they carved them? I will be taking liberties here and there. That red ochre colour on the tree is not fantastic, so I'm going to substitute that out for a nice brown and put a gradation on the underside of the tree and sort of liven it up slightly, and maybe do a few things with the eagle itself. But this main first pass here is more a case of just trying to hit the main points, trying to rough in the shape of the image, and I can go back in a bit and clean up and shape the lines up a bit more. Oh, you got a drawing tablet. Do you draw? Are you an artist yourself, George? Is this something you do in your spare time? So, seeing as I'm just sketching along here, how does everyone feel about this image as a print for you subscribers and you Patreons? Is this something you're excited for? Oh, also something I should mention. I know I'm a bit all over the shop with announcing where the streams and stuff are. Excuse me. If you are a subscriber to my YouTube channel, then tap on the little notification bell and you will be notified when I go live, and we will have hopefully less issues with notifying you guys. Oh, cool. So you're interested in making your own prints, George? Is this Woodblock Prints, I assume? If so, I'd love to see any prints that you have made. Oh, nice. I wish I had the expendable income to. All my money goes on materials to make prints with. I've got a few nice. I collect prints that I particularly want to learn something from. I'd love to see some examples from your collection there, George. That'd be fascinating. Again, I do apologise if you can hear any background noise from the fans on my computer. So all these areas here, where it's slightly slightly blurry and fuzzy. So this could be a couple of things. This could be the resolution of the image. It's not the best resolution image that one could ever find, but also it is a printed image, so it is printed by hand, so there's likely to be small bleeding areas in the paper, so you can see the darkest part of the line, and that's generally where I'm looking to capture it. That's what I'm looking to cover with my pen tool, my brush. Oh, cool. How did you find it? Did you enjoy it? I've never done any line. I tried to do a lino print in college, and it was dreadful. I just couldn't get on. I don't know quite why, but I couldn't really get on with it. This whole process is really, tracing the image like this, it's also a really great way of learning the block. So I'm going to carve this soon. I'm sort of learning the block, learning the small areas of the print that are going to be maybe a bit trickier. I can start to formulate somewhat of a plan as to how I'm going to carve certain areas of this block, and it can help to inform the printing and the carving, and also the printing. I can see areas where printing might be tricky, where there's areas where pigment can build up, and I can sort of take a mental note of that and make sure I get ahead of that when I come to print. Yeah, it was more so the tools. Chayla, I hope you pronounced your name right. Yeah, it was more so the tools. I carve with a knife and chisels, and I hammer the wood away when I'm doing my woodblock prints. So doing something like lino, where I'm pushing a V or U gouge through the lino, is really foreign to me. Pushing a tool away from myself like that, I felt like I had no control over what I was doing, really. Oh, that's great, George. Yeah, this is one thing I've really noticed during the whole pandemic, is that people are getting really creative in ways that, one, that they want to teach and share what they're doing, and two, people wanting to learn and to take on a new craft and learn more about it. So now I've done this small. Yeah, there's difficulties and there's some things that are easier in one thing that are a lot harder in the other, and I suppose it's what you're maybe most suited to. I don't know. But here you can see there's some areas where I'm slightly fatter, and I've sort of missed the sort of heart of the line, I suppose. So now I've done this small section, I'm going to go back in with the eraser, and I'm going to clean up the this little section a bit. Normally this is something that I would do like after I'd done a lot more of a section, but let's do it now, and we can get a good example of what this is. Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people have been forced to go online and to push their work out. A lot of people I know, other artists, relied solely on conventions and in-person events and stuff to sell their work, and they're now sort of being forced and pushed on, not forced, but they're having to move online with their work to sort of stay afloat. So now here I'm sort of using my experience and my intuition as a carver as to what I would like, what I would expect the lines to look like. So this section in here, generally you would see a carver would sort of make this very slight little straight on the end of a knuckle. Yeah, I think so too, George. I think it allows people to be a lot more flexible in how they present their teaching, and also the ways in which people can consume the teaching. They don't have to go and spend money on fuel and travel far and stuff. You can learn something that, so for example, what you teach, you might have people that are really interested in learning that might have to travel very far to do so, that can now learn online. I think that's a great thing, aside from the sort of loss of human connection. I feel like it's sort of it's going to expand the creative arts and sort of push people to be creative and think outside the box, which can only be good for us all in the long run. Exactly, and if you're someone that can provide that instruction to people, and you're comfortable doing so online, and you sort of have the infrastructure in place to do so, then it can only be good. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. Yeah, I can see that maybe for someone that has a lot more experience, that it could work. But if you're trying it out for the first time, then I suppose you've got to really be sort of hands-on to it. So yeah, this is just a case of smoothing things up, just cleaning up areas. Yeah, I can see being almost entirely a contact sport, being in such close proximity to people, like it's going to be. I can see it's going to be really tough to do that. I hope it works out for you, though, George. I really do. So, for now, I think I will just carry on fleshing out some parts of this tail. Get the big stuff out of the way. Excuse me. You can see here, this is just going to be just sort of a load of sort of sausage shapes that I'm going to, as you've seen before, I'll clean up and I'll make these into more nice sort of flowing points with the eraser. I'll go in with a nice fine eraser and clean them up. I didn't actually do this for the first Patreon print. I didn't need to, seeing as I managed to find a really good quality image online of the print that I wanted to do, and also it being just a single colour image, just the key block itself. I didn't have any other colours that would have confused my carving, so that was fairly fortunate. That would have been a real struggle to. Not a struggle. It would have been very time consuming to have traced that entire block. This one shouldn't be too bad. There's not too much in here that's going to take too long. So I haven't been online for a couple of weeks. So what's everyone been up to in the last fortnight or so? Obviously everyone's still trying not to go out as much as possible and things. I've had a chance to go hiking with my partner Lucy. Gone on a few little hiking trips and stuff. Fortunately, where she lives, there's a nice big valley and some mountains and nice things to look at, so we can go on nice socially distanced hikes and things. Not socially distanced from each other, but you know what I mean, from everyone else. Oh, cool. Annie Bissett. I'll have to check out. I'll just search her. I'll search her up. I'm always interested in other printmakers. Oh wow. Ooh. Well, for you guys in the chat that haven't seen this, I'll post a link to her website. If this is the correct Annie Bissett that is a printmaker. I'll sign in. Oh, I'll post it from my phone. There we go. Hopefully that's the correct link to the website. Her work's lovely. Does she design, is this work that she's designed herself as well? I've contemplated the idea of doing some Zoom classes and stuff, but just at the moment, if I'm completely honest, I just don't have any more time. I'm spread out so thinly anyway with all the work that we're doing and stuff, that I just really can't dedicate any more time to anything else. So I'm hoping that I can maybe dedicate some more time to that in the new year. But for the time being, I've really just got to keep the prints rolling out for Jed, and hopefully use this stream as something, maybe a tool for learning and things. As a graphic artist, oh cool. Yeah, like I said, if I can get enough ahead of myself, or if I can find projects and things that maybe it's something I could maybe do following on from this first series of Patreon prints. Yeah, that'd be great, George. Yeah, maybe I'll tie something into that for the next past this series of Patreon prints. Maybe I'll try and tie some aspect of teaching into it. Me and my partner, we're trying our best to save to buy a house, and it's just the mad grind to just keep trying to save the money, and with everything else going on, it's just once I'm more settled, hopefully in the new year, I can I can dedicate myself to more of that, because I feel very fortunate that I'm in a excuse me, that I'm in a position where I feel like I should be sharing these things with people. I'm still learning myself. I'm by no means a master of anything. I'm just a baby in terms of my career and my learning as a printmaker. But maybe sometimes that's even better, is to learn from someone that's learning themselves. There's no air and pretense there. You're both looking to learn. You're both learning from each other. And like I said, I really feel like I should be spreading the word about this and really showing these things that I'm learning. Because everyone knows the basic principles. That you put a knife in the wood and you cut the shape out and you brush some pigment on and take the impression, but it's those small intricacies that if someone never told you, you'd never know. If you understand that, if that makes any sense. I'm just going to rough in this area quick before I move on to the next section. You can go back and fill it all in nice and clear later on when I clean it up. It's like carving a block. When you carve a block for the first time, you never really hit every single part of it 100% perfect. You have to always go back in and like pretty up a shape here and thin out a line there, and you might have to do that maybe 2 or 3 times sometimes. And it's the same case with this. I'm just looking to get the main sections, get the worst of it out of the way, and I can make it look nice and clean and pretty later on. Yeah, definitely. I've done some. I've assisted Laura Boswell over here in the UK a couple of times with classes that she's done, and I really learnt a lot from how to present the idea of doing something like this to a group of people, because it can seem quite intimidating, and people obviously learn at different rates and stuff, so it's sort of managing the expectations of what someone might be able to do in a short period of time, while still being able to have fun and feel like this is something for them. That's what I'd be very conscious of, is convoluting the process too much and sort of turning people off from it. And me sat here waffling for an hour is all well and good when it's just me sort of talking while I'm working. If I'm trying to teach a group of people or one-to-one to someone and I spend most of the time just rambling on about unimportant things, then no one's going to learn anything. Ben's fantastic. He's such a good photographer as well. So he's sort of born to do it, and he's just one of those people that are just interested in things, interested in learning stuff and getting better at it, and ways that they can get better. That's why they work so well. Both of them are 100% always willing to learn, always willing to work outside their comfort zone and try something new. It's a really admirable quality, I feel. And they've both been very good to me. I did my first ever lesson. That's how I was first taught to make prints. I did 2 one-to-one lessons with Laura. She was very accommodating, very good teacher, and I went on from there. Hi Ben, how are you? How's your day been? Or going? How's your day going? I guess the day's sort of just starting to warm up for some people. I'm coming towards the end of my day now. And speaking of teaching and stuff, while I'm streaming and things, I know it's good to like have the streams upload to YouTube and things like that, but also I'd like to produce some more produced content, maybe some slightly more considered content on specific things, stuff that I can take more time explaining and going through the process. Maybe aspects of sizing and the Hanster transfers and stuff that I can work on slowly. Yeah, she's really in her books. If you can get hold of her book that she's done, it's really great. It's really, really great. You can see my my chubby fingers on the second page. I did a little section in there with her. But yeah, she's fantastic. I can't put any more praise on her. Are you a graphic designer then, Ben? That's what I did. That's what I did my my degree in. I wasn't very good, to be honest. I was sort of wanted to be an editorial designer. Buzz. That's something that I do have planned for in maybe in the new year. I'm looking at my I haven't sort of talked about this too much with him, but my brother works in the catering industry, and obviously with COVID and stuff going on, he's been off work on what we have in the UK is furlough. He's been on furlough leave for the entire duration of this pandemic, and I would really like to get him somehow involved in what we're doing. He's very good with, he's taught himself Photoshop, and he has a small business that he's setting up himself on Etsy, which I will plug in a second. But I'd quite like to bring him on in some capacity to help with things like this, with social media and some management of my website, and then adding some more production quality to these streams, and being able to add more camera angles and viewpoints and stuff, and maybe some other more considered aspects other than just me sat there working and just that single camera point of view. Maybe have some other stuff and some show and tell aspects that we can bring up on screen, and where I can just sit and talk and focus, and we can do something a little bit more like Ben and Laura. So, authenticating prints. So, there's a really good website. It's an auction website, I think. But this guy has a. So there's a website called Artelino, and it is run by a guy. What's his name? Is it Dietmar? Dieter Wangzora. He has a really great website where he has a lot of information on prints and print auctions and different things like that. I've just posted a link to his website in the chat. I don't know if he does authentication of prints, but certainly also if you're buying from websites like Fuji Arts, for example, or I can't remember, there's another one in Tokyo, then they do come with authentication certificates. If you mean you're trying to authenticate a print that you would want to be original, meaning from an original block set or from the original time period, that can be really quite hard, because obviously back then there was no such thing as copyright or rights to an image, so anyone could just get hold of the block set, or say for example of the Great Wave, that's been done since it was first created. That's been done quite possibly in the thousands of times. Definitely hundreds and hundreds of different publishers and people have tried to capitalize on that image and produce their own versions, and are still producing their own versions today. One way that you could maybe tell is in the, so you can see down here in the bottom left, this is a seal from the authorities. Every print during this time had to go through a government censorship, and the prints had to be of a certain thing, of a certain type. You couldn't show certain things. They had to be certain sizes. Everything was controlled by a government censorship committee, and generally they were stamped with these seals. Down here is this is the probably the title of the print or name of the designer or something like that. But these seals, and there is a website somewhere. Is it here? Viewing Japanese prints. So I'll post another link into the chat. There is a website somewhere. I'm not 100% sure if this is the correct one, but if I can find it, I will post it publicly. that shows a list of government censorship seals at the time. So you can cross-reference that with your print, and you can tell on the print because it would have been stamped on rather than carved in. So if I go down to this part here, if you were to look at the print itself, you would see that it has been stamped in rather than carved in. 9 times out of 10 you'll see that. They might carve it into the block. Generally it would have been hand stamped onto the block with the Hanko, or what is it, a Hanko? Something like that. And that's quite a good way of trying to authenticate a print. Other than that, I don't know. You can send me if you can send me a photo of it, I can try and have a look. Quite often, landscape prints where you've got a good margin, stuff like what I'm doing here, that was just sort of quick, in and out job done sort of things, wouldn't have necessarily had it, but something from a series quite possibly would have had the date, and it most definitely would have had the publisher's workshop, the publisher's name stamped on it, and you can maybe cross-reference that with how long that publisher was in business for. Okay, interesting. So what sort of dates? Oh, obviously anyone could make a stamp, but you can usually tell quite well with the paper as well. More modern papers are a lot more, can be quite thick and quite fluffy. The older versions of the Echizen Hosho are it's quite surprising how thin the paper is itself. You can even see the scratch marks where the printers really dug the barren into the paper. It's probably had quite hard sizing, and it's got these sort of score marks, these scratches all across the back of the paper. It's this amazingly fine and thin paper that was so strong and able to take such aggressive printing, because these guys are just flying through these blocks, working at the speed of light. But oh no, that's fine. We can talk about anything on here. This is an open chat. We can talk about whatever. But yeah, yeah. If it's old and it's in a, if it hasn't been looked after greatly, that's probably a pretty good example that it's it could be quite original, quite an old one, or an earlier, quite a good copy, because these prints, they were really cheap. They weren't viewed as any sort of great art at the time, and generally what people would do was they would if it was say a poetry club, or someone quite important had commissioned it and it was a type of surimono print, then they would keep it in a drawer. They would have a drawer in the house dedicated to these prints, and they would maybe take them out and show their other noble friends. the amazing print that they had commissioned. But 9 times out of 10, people probably would have just pasted them to their walls like we do with posters nowadays. And they were just... It's amazing that any of these things ever lasted, because they really weren't this incredible art form that was revered. That was really something that happened with the opening up to the West. But yeah, do send me a message over Patreon or an email or direct message on Instagram, anything like that, and I can certainly have a look. I can try. I don't profess to excuse me. I don't profess to have infinite knowledge on the subject and stuff. But I can try and impart knowledge, at least from a technical standpoint. Quite often you can tell quite well by the pigments used and the sort of colour combinations and things that you would expect to see, and sort of try to cross-reference that with other prints of the time and look at colour tones and things. Generally, as the sort of the Edo period ended, you'll see a lot more sort of semi-opaque pigments and really sort of quite strange colour combinations. Maybe a lot of very heavy, sort of almost opaque browns and things in prints, and some of the printing got quite sloppy because these guys saw a really good window of opportunity to sell this stuff to all the Westerners that were coming through. And there was the whole sort of obsession with the first sort of great obsession with Japanese art. You had guys like Van Gogh and Monet and stuff that were really heavily influenced by ukiyo-e and managed to get their hands on some prints, and in Van Gogh's case even painted his own versions of some Hiroshige prints. So right, I'm just going to fill in this small section here, and then I'm probably going to wrap it up for this evening. This has been a really good... I've really enjoyed this stream today. Not that I don't enjoy the streams, but it's been really good to be able to sort of talk a bit more freely and have a bit more time to respond to questions and stuff, rather than just keeping my head down and carving away. So maybe I'll look to do these a bit more regularly while I'm doing this, and we can sort of treat these like little Q&A sort of podcast type things. Yeah, you're quite right there. If you manage to, yeah, generally you'll see a lot of reissues. Most of the prints that I own are 1950s, 1960s reissues. In my opinion, some of those prints are some of the best examples of that particular design that you will find. I know everyone wants the museum grade original 1840s like Hokusai masterpiece, but the stuff that Adachi and people were doing in the 1950s and 60s and moving into the 70s and stuff, even the 80s, because you had a ton of these guys that were the last really traditionally trained craftsmen that really didn't have anything to do. There wasn't a lot of demand for these prints. There wasn't really this sort of resurgence in the real interest in Japanese prints has come from David Bull and Jed Henry and what they did. First, Dave coming through and starting to post everything that he's done online and really creating his online presence, and then Jed coming through with the Ukiyo Hero series. That's really what's created this interest again. But going back to what I was saying, you had this large group of really highly skilled craftsmen that didn't have a lot of work to do, so they were creating these reproductions at a staggeringly high quality. I've seen, Dave showed me some examples done by, I think, Adachi in maybe 70s or 80s, and they are quite possibly some of the best, the highest quality prints that I've ever seen. The amount of work that they've gone through to create these images is staggering. Yeah, you're exactly right there. Yeah, if you're gonna buy an original, if you can even get one now, then you're looking at really serious money. But so we can see this is the sort of the rough shape of all these little feather areas, and we've got a good rough shape of the this first part of the foot. But as you can see, this is 100%, and you can we've got a long way to go. But I think I'm going to call it there. I'll carry on this conversation for a few seconds. Yeah, definitely. My advice would be on treating and looking after a print is most definitely store it. Oh, sorry, let me just save this. Store it in a fairly dry, fairly even moisture room, so it's not too humid or damp in the room. And if you're planning on hanging it, on framing it and putting it up on the wall, make sure it's not in a area of where it's going to get light sat on it all day. Sort of light passing across it throughout the day is fine. It's not going to make too much of an issue. And then sort of once every 6 months to a year, make sure you air the print, get it out and let it sit in the room and stuff, and you should be fine. I mean, these prints have lasted for hundreds of years, and they're most likely the prints that we've got in our collections now will outlast us and keep going. That's the real beauty of these prints, is that I can make my prints safe in the knowledge that they're going to outlast me very easily. Isn't it amazing how that paper just... Yeah, you're exactly correct there, George. Isn't it amazing how that paper can just hold up and stay like that for years and years and years? This is why when I get questions about sort of innovating the process and things that I can do to sort of modernise the way I work, the actual like carving and printing aspect, I always sort of think, well, why would I do that? These guys perfected this technique hundreds of years ago. There's really not any way that I can think to make it better or improve it. But anyway, guys, I'm going to call it there for... Yeah, that should be fine, like that for now. But do send me some pictures. I'd love to see the design, especially if it's Kunisada. But yeah, I think I'm going to leave it there for this evening, guys. I got to get on with some other things and stuff now. But I think I'll be back on Sunday. I'll come back on Sunday evening, and we'll carry on. I'll try and get this boring little section done, and maybe we'll work on a different part, and I can show a different aspect of it, and I'll try and find something to do a little bit of a show and tell on. Maybe these Hokusai Hansters and stuff, and we can have a look through those and maybe have a little bit of a talk and stuff about that. I'll try and find out some information on them so I can give maybe a bit of background and stuff on it. But anyway, guys, take care out there. Everyone be safe. Stay safe. Stay sensible. And I'll see all you guys on Sunday evening. It'll be 7 p.m. UK time, but I'll post anyway. I'll post on socials and on Patreon. But thanks for coming by, guys. Thanks for all the chat. I really enjoyed it. It was a really great one tonight.